Roald Dahl, Sensitivity Readers. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Over the course of the weekend, as I have breakfast, I always read. No matter who is with me, they can expect that they must respect the silence and not interrupt me as I'm reading from my newspapers. Invariably, I will read of the Times, the Telegraph, and the Guardian, a selection of views as I maintain myself in terms of keeping informed. I may also dip into the Spectator and the Economist as well as I dine on my fruit and sup my cup of tea in the morning. This is the accumulation of knowledge which is important for me because of a man of considerable intellect and a thirst for information. I need to know what's going on in the world. That enables me, of course, to be an excellent conversationalist, which allows me in turn to assert control over people. By being urbane and well-read and having a handle on the issues of the day, that enables me to draw people in. It allows me to assert control and draw fuel from them. So not only do I have an intellectual thirst for knowledge of itself, but of course the accumulation of it is hugely important to enable me to function as I do. Wielding knowledge, wielding information, enables me to make people mine. It allows me to own people, to turn them into my playthings. And in the course of this weekend, as I was sat there, just having finished some delicious blueberries and raspberries, accompanied by some yogurt, I happened upon an article in the Times censoring Roald Dahl. What fresh madness was this? I muttered internally. I was even moved to pause and consider what this might be before I read on. For those of you who are long-standing listeners and readers of my work, you will know that I have a particular connection to the works of Roald Dahl. Not only do I think the man is a genius as a consequence of his ability to write the way that he did, but I also have a curious fascination for many of the characters that he created, and that one of my particularly prized possessions is a first edition of one of his publications signed by Roald Dahl himself, which I keep in a safe at Tudor Towers. I have considerable admiration for his work, the ability to weave the stories that he did, and not only those stories that he wrote for children, but there'll be those amongst you who know that he was also behind the early series of Tales of the Unexpected. A master storyteller who could use words. Of course, his characters face some smearing from those that want to forget that he was a man of his time and to portray him as a misogynist, a bigot, an anti-Semite. Let's not also forget the service that he gave during the Second World War and his fascinating autobiography, Flying Solo, and boy, tells you more about his early childhood, helping you understand why he became what he did, and also his excellent adventures whilst he was in the Royal Air Force. He certainly had a fulsome life, far superior to the beige dullards that are attempting now to discredit him through a revision of history. The fact is that I have a particular appreciation, and if you've accessed my Knowing HG series, you'll understand more as to what my connection is with Roald Dahl. And that's why I find it of particular affront to have learned that there are these faceless sensitivity readers who are engaging in sacrilege as a consequence of their desecration of his works by editing them. The absolute brass neck of these fools. According to the Times article, the author's books have been edited for fear of offending. Well, you can fuck that shit sky high. If you don't like it, don't read it. Kids should be allowed to read them in their full, nasty, colourful glory, Absolutely. The day that we start editing books, as has been done here by the late author's publisher Puffin, is a slippery slope indeed, and offends upon the very notion of a freedom of speech. The problem is that those wokeists that commandeer the idea that they are allowed to express their views, but you are not allowed to criticize them, pose a very present danger to the expression of thought and views. Unfortunately for these particular type of wokists, they believe that their feelings become facts, and as a consequence of those facts, in inverted commas, they are then entitled to tell the likes of you how you should express yourself, how you should think, what it is permissible to say, and what it is permissible to think. They want to censor you. They want to control you. It is undoubted that many of my kind are amongst these wokists, Stalinist types who, like a totalitarian regime, want to tell you how you should behave. Naturally, they assert control over people by claiming offence, by claiming that they're empathic and doing it for the greater good. Not all of these individuals, of course, are narcissists. Some are simply normals who follow the diktat, perhaps out of fear from someone else, or through their own misshapen beliefs. It doesn't have to be a narcissist that can behave in this way, although you will find many of them amongst those that are making these decisions to say, these beloved works, these entertaining works, they contain words that offend. If you find words are offensive, then you have a choice. Do not read them. Do not listen to them. But do not come as a namby-pamby, pathetic crybaby, believing that you are somehow protecting others when all you're seeking to do is assert your own agenda over other individuals, and to do so with the works of Roald Dahl and offend his genius is an absolute slight against the written word. I am a man of letters, I am a man of words, and it offends me to find that such kind of censorship would exist. How far are we now a step away from Fahrenheit 451? Burning those books which are deemed that cannot be read. This censorship of what is children's literature is reprehensible and ought not to happen, but it already has. Laura Hackett, the deputy literary editor of the Times, writes as follows: I grew up devouring Roald Dahl's stories, his wonderful imagination, his ability to turn a phrase, his brilliantly colourful characters all fostered a love of reading that led me towards a career in books. But that has not stopped the late author's publisher, Puffin, from making hundreds of changes to his children's books to make them more palatable for today's readers. I find that absolute nonsense. I dare say that I could find any child that would read the books as they stand and would still find them delightful and inoffensive. Indeed, part of their charm is the offence that they might cause to certain individuals. As a 7-year-old, I saw myself as Matilda more than any other character. Laura Hackett continues to write, and spent a considerable amount of time trying to move objects via the power of my brain. In many ways, Dahl's stories aren't brilliant in spite of the darkness. They are brilliant because of it. It's the threat of being locked in the chokey, or forcing Bruce Bogtrotter to gorge on a giant chocolate cake that makes Matilda such a gripping read. The thought of female demons with claws, square feet and bald heads, masquerading as normal women, as in The Witches, seems to tap into a deeply rooted childhood fear that the adults who take care of you might turn out to be evil. And don't we even feel a little bit smug when the horrible spoiled children in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory get their sadistically designed comeuppance? The characters Dahl created have enchanted generations of children, but today's youngsters will be forced to settle for a censored, more sanitized version of his outlandish stories. A note on the copyright page of each title explains, "This book was written many years ago, and so we regularly review the language to ensure that it can continue to be enjoyed by all today. That is not the point of a book. A book is there to be enjoyed as the way that it was written by the author. It is their work. Of course, unfortunately for Roald Dahl, he is dead, and his works have been sold by his family, and therefore that is the problem that occurs when one relinquishes copyright. To enjoy these stories, the bigwigs at Puffin clearly believe the gluttonous Augustus Gloop from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory cannot possibly be fat. He must simply be enormous. Come on, we all know that he isn't tall. I mean, what asinine nonsense this is. Augustus Gloop, big fat, stupid nincompoop, as was sung in the Depp version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Absolutely ridiculous. He's a fat biffer, a porky, a tubby, a great big fat lump of lard, and that's part of the joke. And even fat kids will just look at it and think it's funny as he gets sucked into the pipe and gets stuck. But no, these libtards that sit there thinking, bring out the sensitivity reader. He can't be fat, he must be enormous. Miss Trunchbull cannot have her great horsey face. She just has a face now. What's this? Protecting Sarah Jessica Parker through editing the works of Roald Dahl? Preposterous. Puffin used sensitivity readers in their effort to bring Dahl bang up to date, and they have suggested edits of his writing about gender, mental health, weight, race, and violence. Bring those sensitivity readers before me, and then I'll test their sensitivity to the max. Originally popular in the United States, sensitivity readers, who are hired by editors and authors to review manuscripts before publication to check for stereotypes or offensive language, are now increasingly common within the British publishing industry. An unfortunate import. Many of the changes to Dahl's books seem minor. I'd knock her flat becomes the much more diplomatic, I'd give her a right talking to. Nonsensical. You saucy beast becomes you trickster. Other changes are just patronising. The Witches once imagined a woman working as a cashier in a supermarket or typing letters for a businessman. Now she might be working as a top scientist or running a business. Are there no women cashiers now? Rather than going white as a sheet, the Queen's Maid in the BFG now goes still as a statue. More supposed racist nonsense. Dahl can't even poke fun at a tortoise anymore. In SEO Trot, tortoises can only read backwards because they are very backward creatures. How rude. Now, they can only read backwards just because. And when Boggis, Bunce and Bean set out on their tractors to destroy the fox's home once and for all in Fantastic Mr. Fox, the animals once noted in terror that the machines were black. They were murderous, brutal-looking monsters. The tractors are no longer black, just in case a fox was being racist. Piffle! There are instances, of course, in which it is essential to edit older books. Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, her finest novel in my opinion, once had a very different title, which featured the N-word. That shouldn't have been allowed in 1939, when the book was first published, and it is disgraceful that a title remains so in the UK until 1985. It's true, also, that Dahl was a very nasty man, a racist, misogynistic, anti-Semitic bully. He cheated on his long-suffering wife, said that seducing women was ridiculously easy, like manipulating puppets, and was a nightmare to work for. His first publisher dropped him. His anti-Semitism is perhaps most shocking. He said of Jewish people, even a stinker like Hitler didn't pick on them for no reason. Of course, if you don't like Dahl for the man that he was, then don't read his books. But don't tamper with them, don't alter them. Even when Dahl was writing the stories, his editors rightly made him remove offensive content, such as the stereotypically black features he first gave to the evil giants in the BFG. But if we are to stop reading children's books by authors who are nasty people, or to remove any instances of violence or rudeness or sexism, we'll be left with very few books at all. You can kiss goodbye to Enid Blyton. Just look at sexist gender roles in The Famous Five. I remember noticing this even as a child, wondering why Anne was always left behind to do the cooking. And what about our beloved Beatrix Potter? Will the hedgehog washerwoman, Mrs. Tiggy Winkle, be written as girl boss civil engineer? Children can be nasty little creatures, and Dahl knew that. His power was in harnessing both light and darkness in his stories, but ensuring that good, kind children always won the day over their bad counterparts, and over tyrannical adults too. He trusted his young readers to tell good from bad, and we should trust our children to do the same. The editors at Puffin should be ashamed of the botched surgery they've carried out on some of the finest children's literature in Britain. As for me, I'll be carefully stowing away my old original copies of Dahl's stories so that one day my children can enjoy them in their full, nasty, colourful glory. So writes Laura Hackett. And I'm pleased to say that I have an original set. Nobody has the right to rewrite a book. Write your own book if you don't like the words that somebody else has used. These sensitivity readers, they're nothing but totalitarianism in disguise. Nothing good comes out of these types of censorship. It appears to me that society is becoming increasingly Orwellian. The works of any writer or artist should never be changed without consent by anyone else. It's a form of censorship. And it's the type of thing, of course, that we see many individuals desperate, of course, to maintain a narrative. You know who I'm talking about. And the fact is, can we say that these remain Roald Dahl books if they've been tinkered with to this extent? The fact is, changing so much and ruining so much in this world just because it might offend some delicate little cherub is nonsensical. Suck it up, Buttercup. The world is a dark place and deal with it. And the fact is that these individuals, these sensitivity readers, the fact that they exist is an affront to any form of literature. My set of Roald Dahl books will remain unaffected by this Orwellian nonsense. And the fact is, we should be allowing people to make their own minds up as to what they think about the literature rather than telling them what they should read. To say that white as a sheet should become still as a statue is quite frankly utter fucking nonsense. And the fact is, where will it end? Will bed linen manufacturers need to consider this fixation with white sheets? Do we need sensitivity sleepers to add to the sensitivity readers? I wanted to share my views with you about this tinkering with Roald Dahl, given my connection to him, and in the circumstances, share my distaste for this idiocy. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.